Well, they've been optimistic about this deal for months now, and it never seems to happen. What happened in Doha, number one, Hamas didn't show up. Tough to negotiate with somebody who's not there. And what the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar have announced basically is what they call a bridging proposal, meaning it's not necessarily the case that either the Israelis or Hamas, or certainly not both of them, have agreed to it. And they've put off till next week resuming negotiations in Cairo. So I think there's a little bit of, if I had a couple slices of bread, I could have a ham sandwich if I had some ham. They're not there yet, and I think the parties themselves are still pretty far apart.
Yeah, we really are, though, in a race against time now on two fronts. One, we'll get to Iran in a second, but they've been threatening to attack and say the only thing that would deter them is a ceasefire. And number two, these hostages, Ambassador. I heard one hostage family say, if we don't get a deal now, they're as good as dead.
Well, let's start with the hostages. I mean, I don't know what figure people have in mind in the United States of how many hostages remain. The number over 100 has been used a lot. I think that's nowhere near accurate. I think there are perhaps less than 20 that are still alive. And the others were either killed actually on or about October 7th or have died since then. So the real question is exactly what is going to come in addition to the hostage exchange. And this is the place where Hamas and Israel, I think, are really far apart. Hamas's idea of a ceasefire is a permanent ceasefire and a withdrawal of all Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip. A synonym for that is end of the war. Mm-hmm. For Israel, ceasefire means a time-limited 4, 6, 8 weeks, something, after which the hostilities could resume. I don't know how you bridge that gap. What do you say, a 2-year ceasefire? That's why I'm skeptical of whether there really is a deal here. There's a lot of talk and a lot of kind of pushing people to say, come on, you got a deal. We've got the framework of a deal. What that means is they don't have a deal.
Why do you think Iran hasn't attacked? It's been threatening now for more than 2 weeks, a swift and severe response to Israel's assassination of Hamas leader Haniyeh in Tehran, and of course the Hezbollah commander in Beirut. Why do you think they haven't attacked yet?
Because I think they have an unpalatable series of choices in front of them. Iran has been humiliated by Israel's ability to kill Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, Iran's capital, in a secure compound, using a bomb that was apparently planted 2 months before Haniyeh showed up. This destroys Iranian credibility in its assertions it can provide security for its own leadership or for its terrorist surrogates. So to reestablish credibility, to get its reputation back, I think Iran is really almost bound to try and take a very strong strike against Israel, which then brings them to the other side of their dilemma. If that happens, I think Iran very much fears that Netanyahu and the Israelis this time will not be restrained by the United States, but will strike very, very hard in Iran against highly prized targets, up to and including the nuclear weapons program.
Yeah.
So Iran's got a very tight line to walk here, and I think that's the real cause of the delay. They've seized on these ceasefire negotiations as a good excuse, but it's only temporary.
Yeah, Netanyahu has been for years wanting to take out those nuclear facilities in Iran, and surely they're watching the same thing the rest of the world is, which is that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is not taking a lot of the advice President Biden is trying to give him. In other words, he's a little uncontrollable at this point, feuding with his own Minister of Defense. They have to be taking that into account as well, no?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of uncertainty. Israel faces a real dilemma in terms of how to deal with Hezbollah, which may be the agent that Iran decides to do the retaliation they're contemplating. Hezbollah's supplies of missiles are reported to be extraordinary. Just using public figures, it's an amazing number. They're said to have between 120 and 150,000 missiles. Now, let's say it's only half that. That's still enough to overwhelm Israel's air defenses. You put that many missiles in the air at once, there's no air defense system in the world that can bring them all down. And if even a percentage of those landed, they could cause substantial damage. So Israel has a very hard question. Do they wait until the strike begins, or do they act preemptively? That's a very tough decision for the Israelis to make.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.